He is one of my favourite ever Liverpool players. Arguably the most exciting Liverpool player I think I've ever seen, although there's tough competition there. The B I'm talking about, if you haven't guessed already, is John Barnes. Ian, for me, as I've said, I remember John Barnes signing because I was a kid, and I think there was the excitement about John Barnes because he'd already been a very, very good footballer with Watford. He'd had some decent games against Liverpool for Watford, and when he came in to Liverpool in 1987, it was the dawning of a new era with Ian Rush leaving and Barnes, Beardsley, and Aldridge, wasn't
Yes, it was a new. And Liverpool had won the double in '86, but by '87 they were obviously changing things around again, and so that '87-8 season was mainly about that new Liverpool team, and he was one of the big parts of that. Obviously, a fantastic player, and whenever I'm asked to pick my all-time Liverpool 11 with players in the right position, John Barnes is in that team on the left-hand side for me. One of the greatest players I've seen. I mean, you mentioned, that we'd seen a bit of it at Watford, but we'd seen a bit with England. You remember the goal he scored against Brazil in the Maracanã?
Yeah, that was in '84, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 3 years before he came to Liverpool. So we knew he was a great player, but the impact that he had straight away. I mean, that '87-8 season was one of Liverpool's greatest seasons. I remember the BBC, their goal of the season that year was all Liverpool goals because they dominated that season so much, and in fact lost the cup final to Wimbledon, which put a dampener on it really. But what a great season that was. He was outstanding. You remember the game against Queen's Park Rangers at Anfield when he scored two brilliant goals, one of which where he just like a mazy run through everyone, just slotted it past David Seaman, I think it was, in goal. But he was just a fantastic winger. Later on in his career, obviously, because he stayed at Liverpool a long time, he moved more into midfield and he played more of a central midfielder. But you could tell even towards the end of his career, he never lost that great touch that he had. But when he first arrived, he was so exciting as a winger.
And I think, Mike, the other thing for me was, again, and I remember this, it was quite a departure for Liverpool to go down that road with John Barnes because, as Ian said, he was an out-and-out winger. He hugged the touchline. He beat players, left, right and centre. So I remember some brilliant nutmegs that he did in that Forest game, the 5-0. There was a gorgeous nutmeg. But we'd gone from an era where Ronnie Whelan played on the left, but not as a left winger. Liverpool actually didn't really play with wingers for quite a long period of time.
No, because if you think before Ronnie Whelan, there was Ray Kennedy as well, who was, originally a striker who was converted to play on the left side of midfield.
And Steve Highway as well probably would have been the last.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Highway was an orthodox left winger, just like John Barnes was when he came to Liverpool. Explosive pace, absolutely unbelievable ability to get away from defenders straight away, and it's that extraordinary talent of not just the pace, which is one thing, and it's great to see, but his control and touch. First touch when the ball would come to him, and he'd be on the run, and he was brave with the ball. It wasn't just taking on players for players' sake to make a bit of yardage down the line. He'd cut inside. He could go either way. He was good in the air. He was just the all-round footballer. And like Ian says, when you're talking about the great Liverpool players, and it's an oft-asked question because Liverpool have had so many of them down the years, and people tend to forget, sometimes even those that have seen John Barnes, they tend to forget how good he was in his pomp. He was an absolute world-class talent, one of the very, very best that I've ever seen. And a real match winner. Scored so many great goals. Ian mentioned the famous ones against Queen's Park Rangers, and even sort of later on in his Liverpool career, in the famous 4-4 draw at Goodison Park, that fabulous curling shot.
Where he cut inside the fullback and then curled it into the top corner.
Just indicative of a world-class talent. And when you look at the great players down the years at Liverpool and Everton, he is one that will always stand the test
and
of time.
some of the crosses as well. I mean, Everton fans won't thank me for reminding them of the '89 Cup final, the ball into Ian Rush.
Yeah.
And for England, do you remember the Lineker pulled one back against Argentina
In '86, yeah.
He just come off the bench.
He was a sub, and he came on. The first thing he did, got down to the byline and got that crossing, and Lineker scored. So who knows if he'd have been on a bit earlier.
I think he was perfect for that '87 team as well, because John Aldridge, and we talked about John Aldridge in the A's, but he thrived on Barnes's deliveries into the box because he was such a poacher, whereas Ian Rush was more a ball over the top kind of centre forward, which obviously Dalglish was threading a lot of those balls through to him. I think Aldridge benefited from him and Peter Beardsley, another B, who we'll do on the next round maybe.
Yeah.
But John Aldridge thrived on those two, really, didn't he?
Yeah, because John Barnes would go down the line and pull it back for Aldridge to run onto, or for Aldridge to meet at the near post or the far post.
Do you remember the goal in the '88 Cup semi-final? So the one against
Fantastic
Forest,
finish.
It's the Barnes ball in, and Aldridge just volleys
Just
it.
sublime.
Oh,
Sublime. And the relationship that John Barnes had with Aldridge and others, because not only was he quick, not only was he a wonderful talent with the ball at his feet, he had perception. He saw things earlier than most people do or did, and that it invites so many different possibilities. If you've got somebody with that sort of vision, and then you get other players buying into it to the extent that Aldridge obviously did, and those balls in, and just meat and drink for Aldridge. As you say, Ian Rush, better known for his runs in behind defenders, and those finishes across the goalkeeper. Aldridge could, of course, do that, and so Rushy could get on the end of crosses coming in from the wings. But you're right, that sort of difference that John Barnes provided in terms of service.
and it's just a shame, as you mentioned there, Ian, he did reinvent himself, and he was very, very good in Roy Evans' team of the mid-90s of playing in that central midfield role. But injury, I mean, I think we had 4 seasons of peak John Barnes, which was 87 to 91, where he was arguably the best player in the world. I don't think I'm exaggerating with that. On a consistent basis.
It was week in, week out, wasn't it?
And another one. Okay, I'm going back again. Another one who never made it as a manager. He never did it as a manager.
And that's probably again the point that Mike was making earlier about players that are so good probably find it a little bit difficult to be around players who are not at the level that he was at, and trying to sort of get those ideas across. And it must be so frustrating. But in a way, when you think about it, there's no reason why a great player should make a great manager, because they are two different things, aren't they? Some of the best managers of all time didn't even play to any great level. If you look at it like that, Arsene Wenger, for example, players like managers like that, and there are others, I'm sure. So it's not a given that if you're a great player, you become a great manager. But it didn't quite work out managerially for him, I suppose.